One of the most famous episodes of this show is Anthology of Interest 2, or in particular the middle segment of this anthology, the middle segment of the free Raiders of the Lost Arcade, which features all of these 80s video game characters, arcade game characters invading the Earth, and one of the first major large-scale video game references in a pop culture format on television or in films in general. I mean, there are scattered video game references in The Simpsons, the Try and Save, Super Nintendo Chalmers / Dash Dingo in that same episode.
Yeah.
And maybe assorted references in what was brought up off air, the Encino Man character named Link.
Yeah, and I swear there's a few
things here and there.
Like in Duckman, there's a few, I think.
Yeah, maybe in some of those films like Mallrats, you know what I mean?
Mallrats would probably have a video game reference somewhere. At the very least, he's playing like a...
He's playing that hockey game on Sega.
Yeah, he's playing like a Mega Drive or Genesis, hockey game.
Genesis, sorry. Had to.
But yeah, it's here and there. But this in that second segment, it is sort of obviously the main focus of it.
Yeah, and it was probably I think it was the most major sort of overt homage to video game media in another pop culture form at that time. I mean, later when the Hollywood film Pixels existed, people were pointing to this Futurama segment as being the kind of obvious inspiration for it, to the point of Pixels being an act of plagiarism.
Right.
Not the first time, though. Obviously, I think when video games really broke the threshold into major Hollywood films was 2012's Wreck-It Ralph. That's when it became sort of passé by that point.
Say Wreck-It Ralph. Yeah, definitely it was a bit. Yeah, because that's similar to, I think, a few years later you ended up with, what was that Spielberg movie or whatever?
Oh, that was quite a bit later, but Ready Player One.
Yeah, it was a book around that time, though.
Yes,
I think
it
the
was.
Book's like 2009 or something.
Yeah, and that was about, like, 80s media in general.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, what was the one you brought up before, Wreck-It Ralph?
Oh, Pixels?
Yeah, Pixels. I don't think it's quite that deep as far as being, like, a plagiarism of this episode, because... I think it started out as like some guy's like little short film sort of tech demo thing.
Yeah.
You know, what if Space Invaders was, or like they're invading or whatever.
Yeah,
a few different. I guess it is sort of the same premise, but
it's like they would have seen the episode.
I think it was just more to be like just to show off this guy's like, you know, DIY like graphics capabilities.
Yeah.
And then some studio was just like maybe Adam Sandler or whatever.
Yeah.
Was just like. Fun to that.
Yeah, of course.
The movie felt very cynical, whereas this one is definitely more a labour of love.
Absolutely.
And it's not lost in space.
Yeah. As in that late 90s film?
No, Love's a Labour Lost in Space.
Oh, right.
And this episode, that segment particularly, but it's not even my favourite in the episode.
Oh, yeah.
My favourite might be the first one.
That's a masterpiece.
So they're all masterpieces in their own right, to be fair, though, because I've always loved all three of them.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, maybe even though I do like the middle one quite a lot, it's probably my least favourite of the three.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was even when I kind of had, you know, not seen the episode in a while, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, it's the Wizard of Oz thing, you know. I was just like, yeah, wow, why'd they go there? But then watching it again, it's similar to maybe the video game references, you know, they're just from that generation that would always have Wizard of Oz on television, which was sort of a tradition all throughout, like airing movies on television or whatever, whether it be in America seemingly, but definitely I know in Australia as well.
Oh, yeah.
And so you just feel like similar to the video game references, it's like maybe the writers in their like, you know, childhood and like pre-adolescent, maybe adolescent years, these were the things they enjoyed or remembered fondly. And so they do a sort of, I don't know, a really funny Wizard. Like, you wouldn't think a Wizard of Oz parody would be really good. Similar to maybe, like, the Slurm Factory.
I was going to say, this is a way better take on the Slurm Factory, partly because it's in the anthology of, like, what, 7 years?
It doesn't go the whole thing. Yeah. And it's just, like, funny jokes. Like, of course, we were talking about the classic, the gun bit.
Yeah.
You know, who needs courage when you have a gun?
Fantastic.
Yeah, that little segment has... this whole episode has very, like, snappy writing.
Awesome, yeah.
That does help the... They're all like little separate, maybe like 8-minute stories or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it lends itself to being very snappy, and they all do it really. And that first one, once again, Bender becoming a human. That's just too. Yeah, and all the jokes that they could just cram in out of that. It's never ending jokes.
Because that could have been like some 20-minute episode, which may have been funny, but may have had like the ending. But like all the funny jokes are in this one little short time span, and it's absolutely brilliant.
And it was a great decision to kick off the episode. The three in this sequence works really
It's absolutely
well.
magnificent. I think the reason someone on the DVD commentary, I believe David Cohen, claimed that The Wizard of Oz was their favourite film, and that would have inspired them doing a parody of it there.
Makes sense. I assume maybe it's just because it's a reference point a cultural reference point that they can put jokes around. But the fact that it was also someone's favourite movie makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is one of my top favourite episodes of the show, and just like Bender as a human, it's just such a brilliant idea, because Bender already was and the robots in general seemingly in Futurama, they're very electrified replications of of human pathologies. They're just so mechanical and they just kind of go. There's no sort of moral core. There's no sense of mortality. They're just programmed. And they're just functioning. And what humans would be considered vices in humans, although the world of Futurama seems a lot more amoral and sort of American sadistic than our world.
A weird sort of Zen immoral future or something like that is the sort of state of New York.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to set the show.
But then you have so when Bender does become a human, and it's like someone becoming a human, and the character he's transforming into is probably some 33-year-old guy or something, maybe older by the looks of him, and he's he's not given any sort of upbringing, not knowing any of the sort of pitfalls, seeing adults sort of rise and fall above you, learning all the health hazards. He just has all the impulses of an adult with the lack of insight of a younger child, and he just goes for it.
Yeah, eating and shitting at the same time.
Oh, and Fry advocated for that, but when Bender wants to, in an earlier episode, when Bender wants to do it here, he can eat more. I dated a robot.
Oh yeah, but doesn't he say he throws up?
Oh, maybe he means that.
I don't think he gets full, but then he just throws up so he can eat more.
Oh, okay.
He just clears his face out.
Oh, I hear it too.
I think that's what he meant.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
As opposed to Fry will do things like eat a chicken off his head, but
the cereal.
Yeah, but
that's an Anthology one.
Eating and wiping, not a good combination.
Bender. It's such a beautiful episode, just them finding him at the end, and he's just a horrible gelatinous blob.
Oh, as a kid, I thought that grilled cheese bit was so funny.
Oh, I remember when he's making out with that woman in the hot dog.
Oh, and the hot dog, that is
one of the funniest things ever. It's so grotesque, but I adore it.
And that song is
shameless.
Oh man, that's a classic.
Everybody gather around now. Everybody move your feet. It's Gloria Estefan.
They just play it 6 times in the episode, but it's worth it every time.
I was not twice. I think it's just once. Oh yeah, it's once. Yeah, and at the party at the end, and in that stretch in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Goodbye moderation. It's one of the funniest things ever made. It's perfect. But the reason I like part 2 so much is everything's I like how they animate all the sprites within the context, make them all 2D, sort of flat and sort of heavy. How
definitely the animation in that sequence.
Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, the Space Invaders, and how they go all 3D. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, I agree. The animation in that sequence is especially in the Futurama's sort of simplistic style. They sort of go all out as a whole piece, and also with the Tom Sawyer playing. That's hilarious.
Beautiful.
Fry, that sort of highlights sort of I think what I was getting at as well. Fry's bit there where he's I've got a quarter ounce of some drink or whatever, and a tape recorder of Rush.
Yeah.
It's Friday night and he's in a pizza shop or whatever. It kind of goes back to the first scene of the show as well.
Yeah, it does.
Which is sort of what I think it's the writers doing a sort of self-insert. Those sort of Friday, there maybe when they were late teens or something. That was the shit they were doing. That's the impression I get. So it is sort of, yeah, definitely. I guess Anthology of Interest is just like the writers showing all the things that sort of inspired them creatively in a way.
Yeah. And like it's a great format. Like I always really love the idea of Futurama having its own kind of treehouse of horror, and I never really thought of it like that until I guess we did this retrospective. Maybe I thought about it before, but like season 4 didn't have one, so I kind of used to think about it. And also Scary Door was kind of what you'd think of as like Futurama's treehouse of horror, little horror segments in a way, as like a joke.
Yeah.
But really, like in terms of the anthology 3 parts, obviously, yeah, I think likely Anthology of Interest was intended as sort of the counterpart. Although they have had a couple of I don't know if they're necessarily What If Machine episodes, but they have had anthology episodes in the newer show. There was one of the more likable episodes in season 8 had like 3 different animation styles.
Yeah,
which I quite liked.
That's a good one. Though that's not an Anthology of Interest episode.
No, it's not What If
it's sort
Machine.
of it's just its own thing.
Yeah, they just sort of just do that after a while in the newer one.
I don't mind that there's just 2 Anthology of Interest, as opposed to like, I don't know, you look at something like Treehouse of Horror. It was really good for a bunch of years in a row, but eventually they just like come up with the most whack ideas. You know?
That's only because the show had gone downhill at that time anyway.
Yeah, well, the show it's a symptom of the same problem, I suppose. But
Treehouse of Horror was arguably the strongest episode of the season for like a few years into the 21st century.
Yeah,
quite by quite a margin, I would say.
The one in that era that I always just kind of, I think not many people like it that much is that Harry Potter one.
That's not that great.
Yeah,
that's on season 12 also, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. See, there's a few good ones around that time, but yeah, there's stuff like that starts to creep in,
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I would consider, both Anthology of Interest episodes to be among my favourite episodes of the 4-season run.
It's kind of neat that it was just a sort of dual episode sort of thing, rather than, I don't know, maybe if you could imagine Anthology of Interest 5 and say Anthology of Interest 5 is in like one of the new seasons in the first reboot or whatever, and it's just like the dumbest ideas. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but then that's just the show being sort of downhill anyway.
Yeah, that is true. It's I guess it's not a sort of unique criticism of the format, but I don't know. I like that it's in a limited sort of supply, but yeah, maybe later on they were lacking that, perhaps. Either way, this episode is definitely like easily a top 10 of the show.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, it'd have to be.
Yeah, as I said, one of the most well-known episodes, because just that the Raiders of the Lost Arcade is, people used to talk about that at school. Like, it was just really cool to have all the video game characters in sort of this one segment there. It was really exciting to be acknowledged like that. And also cool that this episode would have aired 2001 too. They're referencing the, at that time, new early-ish internet meme, all your base are belong to us.
Yeah, that's
it's very cool.
Very contemporaneous.
Cool's relative,
reference.
I suppose.
Well, it was definitely a cool reference to put on a TV show in what year is this? 2003?
Very early 2000s. I think it's 2002 maybe.
It would have been a relatively new meme at that time, yeah. And people wouldn't have gotten it outside of the people who were,
on the net,
engaging with the meme on the internet, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, come to think of it, what was the episode before this one?
So before this one was Fair to Remember.
Yeah, so like the last string of, like I was gonna say, this episode and then like the next 2 coming up, they're all like classics.
Yeah, and then the one after that even is actually a really strong one too.
Oh, nice.
That'll be really interesting. But yeah, I'm full.
So yeah, this is definitely the show. Like it's right in its groove at the moment.
Yeah, they were really on point here, and it's just an episode I'd go back to a lot when I was young. Like everyone my age, who liked the show really loved this episode. It was easily one of the most likable then, and still one of the most likable now for me always. That's all I got to share for this one.
Yeah,
I'd like to move on to the next one actually.
Yeah, I'm sure if you're a fan, you've already seen it. So yeah, and if you haven't, fucking watch it.
Yeah, get on it. Thanks everyone again.